Welcome to the HMAR Mobile Tech channel. Today I got a good video for you. It's about voltage drop. Now, before we get started, take a moment to subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment. Let's get started. Here's what you're going to need to do this voltage drop test. You're going to need something that's like this. It's going to have 2 leads and it's going to be approximately 15 feet long. And then just a good automotive digital multimeter that most all of them that I've ever seen do voltage DC. So make sure you have volts DC, and that's capable of doing from 0 to 20 volts. We're only going to be using one side. We're just going to use the red just to make it easy because we're going to just be doing a voltage drop on the positive side of the power supply of the starter. So get yourself enough 3 feet, 4 feet when you unspool it so that way you'll have enough room for the wire to reach underneath the car. And then you're going to grab the other end. So one end will go to the main power supply that goes directly to the starter, and then this one here is going to go to your digital multimeter. Just make sure you have enough length in order to do that. You're going to need to get something like this. It's a remote starter switch, and I'm just going to use this one since it's already out of the package and it's the one that I use a lot. Before you get started, you want to make sure that it's a good switch. So you just connect your digital multimeter, one end to one end of the alligator, the other end to the other end. So these are your 2 black and then your red test leads of your digital multimeter, and then put it on continuity, and then just make sure that it works. If you hear that little audible sound there, that means that my remote starter switch is in good working condition. This is what it looks like when everything's all hooked up. You'll see that red wire goes to the starter nut. That's your supply wire that supplies power to your starter. And then you'll see a connector that's disconnected right here. This connector. This goes to the ignition switch, and behind this is the ground wire here that goes to the engine block. But right here, there's a spade. This is the female part, and then that part's a male. So the black end is just clipped on the inside of that. Real difficult to see, but if you move your head a little bit, you'll be able to see it when you're under here doing it. Now, every car is going to be a little bit different. This is a 2008 Toyota Tacoma, so the V6 engine. So this is how it's going to be here. It's on the driver's side, and I'm just underneath the driver's side tire, of course, with the wheels chalked, and it's in park, and the e-brake is set. So that's how you get all that hooked up. So we just want to make sure we have that red wire going to the front of the vehicle near where we're going to be doing all this testing here. And to make sure once you connect this, make sure that the other end is not touching anything that could possibly come in contact with ground of the vehicle, because once you connect that red wire alligator end, it's live. So you know it's hot. You got power there. The way that I got it all hooked up. Now just be careful. This end right here goes to that positive 4 or 2 gauge wire going to the starter. It's your supply power, and that goes on to the red lead of your digital multimeter. And just to show you it's live, I'll go to ground here and look at the digital multimeter. Okay, so we're live here, so don't let this touch anything. Okay, we're not going to use a fuse here, but we are going to use a fuse with the remote starter switch. And the reason why you want to use resetting fuse is because you don't want to blow fuses and keep going through fuses because they can be expensive. So get a resetting fuse, and this is just there to ensure that you don't burn up any wires in case you hook things up the wrong way. And so you just get a fused, I use a resetting 20 amp, and then I got it going to positive, and then I got one end going to the one open alligator end. It doesn't matter which one you hook it up to. And then the other one is going to our black wire. Remember, that wire is going to our control wire of the starter side. So it doesn't matter how you hook these ends up. it's still going to work. Then we take this end here and we're going to just stick it on the positive side, because all we're doing is checking to see if we're losing any voltage on the positive side when we push this button here to just turn the engine over. Now be very, very careful. If you're going to do this, you want to make sure that you have the wheels chocked, and then you want to make sure that you for sure go look and make sure that you have it in park, and then have the parking brake set, which it is. Okay, so once you're confident everything is hooked up properly and everything's safe as far as the truck goes and it's in park and the parking brake set, then you take your switch and then check your digital multimeter out. And to the best of my knowledge, if it's not more than a half a volt for these thicker gauge wires, like 2 gauge, 4 gauge like that, then you're fine. You don't really have excessive voltage drop, or it's a normal amount of voltage drop. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. So it's basically 150 millivolts, which is perfect. It's at basically a little more than 1/10 of a volt. So that's excellent. That means that there's no voltage drop on the positive power supply side that goes from the battery to the starter. So what this is checking is that from here all the way to down all the wires that goes directly to the starter on the positive side is good. There's no corrosion. There's no issues. There's no resistance. Everything's good to go. So that's a good circuit there. This is basically a circuit integrity test on the positive side of the power supply to the starter. Now, if you want to check the ground side, what you'll do is, instead of having this wire on the power supply positive side of the starter, you just stick it to a good ground on the starter body itself. And then because that's where the starter is getting its ground. And then you just do the same test. And then you're going to look for less than a half a volt. What we just saw was ideal for voltage drop. That was very, very little. It's also worth mentioning that when you have your alligator ends, you want to make sure that when you're connecting them to either the starter nut for the positive side or a part of the starter body that's for ground, make sure that when you pinch this on there, this is just giving you an example, but when you're underneath the vehicle, wiggle it and scratch it so it gets good contact. And then that way you won't have any issues with you hooking up your test leads and jumper wires and all your connections. So you want to make sure that those are all right. And then in the beginning, I told you about just checking your switch, your remote starter switch, to make sure that it works, so that you can be sure that whatever you're seeing is accurate and that your test equipment is in good working order. This concludes our video for today. Thank you for watching. You did a good job. Subscribe, like, and share, and watch some of my other videos. See you next time.